kick us off. All right. Today is Tuesday, February 6th, 2024. I'm Kianga, hosting, moderating today's Regenerative Finance Aligned Voter Committee meeting. You know, I've asked anyone who wants to share their mood to drop a GIF in the chat. How you're feeling? Bunch of our delegates have completed the data assignment, and I'm really looking forward to reading those. All right. So today's going to be a first for me, for moi. As some of you, I'm sure, hopefully saw, I made slides. I am actually so excited. It's a little bit weird. Christian, you're typing. How bad are the slides? I don't know. Did you get a chance to see them? I'm going to share my screen.
I just can't believe this is the first time you've done this. So it may be the first time in Maker, but you were a lawyer both in private practice and for a while. So,
But Christian, I graduated law school in the 20th century.
Yeah, I remember sending faxes to Argentina. So yeah, let's.
No, I guess more specifically, for the AVC meetings, I, one of our first contributors, some of you were part of these meetings. Space Exponential did some really wonderful slides and presentations and what have you. And Mike, you've presented a couple of times with some slides, but this is the first time for me, and I want to. Yeah, I was just moved to do it, and also thought it'd be helpful, not just for us who are here live, but also for the recording. So we're, as everyone here, looking at everyone in the room knows, we are, really in earnest getting organized around what the future of governance and the future of MakerDAO will look like, and what we are all here to do during this pregame transition period. And so what I'm going to share with everyone today are, my own thoughts as FHOmoney.eth member. Have not discussed this or recruited Christian and Mike for their feedback in advance. So take this as one person's opinion. Strong opinions, strongly held. And sometimes I will often have very fierce opinions, not because necessarily I'm going to fight to the death about them, but often I think sometimes points and counterpoints in our discussion as a community, some clashing is very healthy. And so I'm very happy to maybe take a minority view on some points, or to come across rather strongly if it helps us grow as a community and come to the right result at the end, which is really all that I care about. And that the entire spirit of what we're trying to evolve into is this awareness of the equilibrium, right? This alignment, which necessarily means, and particularly for those of us who are alignment conservers, we've committed in each of these roles to be satisfied at the end of the day with kind of the outcome of a process that has legitimacy, a process that has transparency, that has order. And, as a lawyer, it's something that a concept I love and I'm familiar with, a sense that, like, if the process is fair, like, we can't always have a fair outcome, but sometimes the way we try to get there is by ensuring kind of a fair process. So I feel that sense is resonant in the work that we are doing. So I didn't see what you said OMG to, Mike, because you all can't see my face, my actual face, but I really do like look off into the distance when I'm talking to you. Sometimes I get like on my mental soapbox and I like forget where I am and I don't keep my eye on the chat. But let me go ahead and share my screen, and I just want to talk through the talking point. I'll use the slides for what I wrote them for, which is to aid in the conversation. And what I'd like to ask is that if you have something that you want to say in response to what I'm saying, always 100% with these meetings, encourage, voice participation. So that's number one. I'm not going to be able to do a great job talking through the slides and looking at the chat. So just for sake of order and for the flow, if you have a point that you want to really be part of the conversation, maybe hold those until I'm done with the slides, and then, or I pause on the slides, and then I'll sort of pause and I'll turn to the chat so that, we can engage in the chat, folks can come off mic, etc. And then at the very, very end of the call, I wanted to talk a little bit about the future of the AVC and, some things about MakerDAOs. And I see Mal and Paul, welcome, which is exciting to have you here. Someone who doesn't happen very often, where someone just pops into our AVC channel and has something to say. So we love that, and love seeing, people organically taking the pain to try to find us, try to find out what's going on. And so if you are in this room or you're watching this video and you even know what the atlas is, I'm like, wow, I'm impressed. Because it's pretty esoteric stuff that we're dealing with. All right, let me share my screen. Hang on, bear with me, everybody. Get to the first page. Okay. All right. Can everyone see that? Thumbs up. Great. Okay. Let me organize myself so that I can talk with you. All right. Yes. Hello, Kianga with the slides. All right. So we're here, an aligned voter committee of MKR holders represented by myself and a tokenized community of people who are very passionate about regenerative finance and have their own projects and work all around the world in this space. And we've been almost for a year. I mean, we are in the fourth quarter of this new governance paradigm at MakerDAO involving aligned voter committees and aligned delegates, etc. And part of that journey, we call it the pre-game to the end game, has brought us to the stage where we are now, where the requirements and the understanding of what we should be doing in these roles and what we should be doing in particular with this hour of time that we come together, it's really changing quite dramatically from what it was a year ago or what was envisioned a year ago. And one of the things that I'm coming around to, and I'll be excited to hear everyone's perspectives on this and how the other AVCs kind of think about this, is a year ago at the very beginning, I certainly had the notion, and it was spoken about, that AVC membership would be kind of like a hobby. It's just kind of for fun. It can't require a lots of detailed day-to-day involvement with Maker, lots of in-depth knowledge. I mean, you just think about your average MKR holder, whale or shrimp, and you just think it's just not possible to expect a group of holders to, really be able to have that depth of day-to-day knowledge that maybe, in the past paradigm our recognized delegates had, which I played a part as a recognized delegate, for those who don't know. However, I think we really have to challenge that notion and how we've thought about incentives around who is going to serve on these committees. And so it's really great that the data assignment was very focused on AVCs, right? I mean, the whole entire assignment was like all AVC rules. Because I feel that there's need to be some adjustments to that thinking, and you can see that in our governance strategy. And I'm going to go through some of the ways that I think for AVCs to work and to sort of achieve, for the whole end game ecosystem structure to achieve its ends. I sort of am coming around to this idea that there absolutely is going to have to be some core team within the aligned voter committee structure that really knows everything as well as anybody possibly can. And I'm certainly not holding myself out as someone who's best positioned to be one of those people. But in my current role, I want to really encourage new participation in this AVC. And I want us to, explore what that looks like. And so where LB, who is the community contributor who has the new responsibility to coordinate, all of this activity for the new Atlas, they started their presentations 2 weeks ago, the workshops talking about, or maybe it was just all 1 week, I don't remember, talking about this idea of the hologram, seeing the whole in each part, and that the number one thing that we're doing right now in the Atlas work is not the data structuring for an LLM, although we are doing that, but that the activities are primarily designed for our cognition, the human beings, our cognition. And I just thought that that was a really helpful and important way to anchor what we're doing here. And so that's also part of why I'm proposing that AVCs, and, we're going to see how it goes with refi, that we have the capability internal to the AVC to comprehend the whole, which is like, like that metaphor of the giant elephant where everyone says, oh, the elephant is this leg or the elephant is this tail, and like no one can see the whole elephant. The Atlas is kind of like that, which is again where I think that this idea of an AVC member, that's a team, that's a group, that's a DAO, that's a community that works together to fulfill the responsibilities, really has the potential to scale, rather than AVC members being, discrete individuals. So, this is a picture I found of what our brains are going to have to start looking like. I mean, for anyone who wants to, right? I mean, I want to explore how we can make this process fun, what it will look like for these meetings, as I mentioned last week, to become even more internally focused, even more in the weeds, but at the same time still be welcoming and interesting to newcomers and outsiders. I mean, that is absolutely crucial. And so it's a little bit also why I decided to put together some slides, and I'm starting to think more, and obviously welcome everyone's input on this, how to conduct these meetings, thinking about a slightly different audience. So thinking about who may watch this video later that wants some help or is trying to navigate getting involved. speaking a little bit less directly to our ADs, in the sense that we want to create space for contributors to give opinions and give contributions, perspectives from the outside world. And many of those points will be things that actually ADs are not supposed to even do, right? I mean, we've been relying on our ADs for probably more than technically we should, in terms of, when I say we, I mean broadly as a governance system, because you all are the ones who are here and who have the most knowledge. But we do know that there are things like scope advisors. We do know that there are the AVC members themselves, that we want to see these meetings become dynamic and sort of participatory in ways that ADs with their anonymity requirements are constrained. Pour one out for 0x Defensor, in terms of, I'm sure that's been upsetting to all of you, definitely upsetting to see the derecognition there. And I hope it's not discouraging for anyone who's participating. It really hurts to lose or any of course, our prime delegates, any of you who are coming every single week because of the operational security issues. But they're very, very important. So it is imperative that I think AVCs begin to think about and practice ways to be more attractive to the outside world. And we need to really start building that pipeline into all the roles. Folks who might want to become AVC members, who might sign up to be unaffiliated AVC members and participate in the Atlas work, those who may want to become scope advisors, delegates in the future, facilitators. I mean, we have so many roles and so much to do that I think AVCs can play a role in helping that pipeline. And so we'll try to strike this really difficult balance of getting deep in the weeds to do the work we have to do on the Atlas, but also trying to speak more inclusively and make these meetings more accessible and potentially interesting for that really, really strange Venn diagram of people who can just care at all about this next slide. Interrogating the next generation Atlas at the JSON level. So yeah, I'm down for it. I'm down for it. That AVC should have members. That's saying every single member. So if it's not your thing, doesn't mean that you're excluded, which is again where I think that a kind of team approach to AVC membership is a great one, because no one can have all of these different capabilities. But yeah, I have this opinion that there is enormous value in us wrestling with the JSON structure. I've been doing it, and I promise you, I'm the best I'm the best test case of someone who's not naturally disposed whatsoever at all to kind of deal with this. But I think of these two analogies that I put in the slide, and I say specifically 1980 because I have an actual memory from whatever age I was, 7, in 1980, of sitting in my classroom at this 3rd grade, 2nd grade, and kind of having this argument with our teacher that we didn't want to have to. Why do we need to learn to tell time on the clock? Because there was a thing at that point of watches just digitally told you the time. Why do we need to learn? It just seems silly. Or also back in the 80s we had these what we thought was very advanced technology, to circle back to how old I am. We could have pocket calculators. So why do I need to add or subtract? So I'm kind of offering this idea in our community that I don't know exactly what it is, because I don't know enough about JSON or this kind of language, but that there may be some value to us struggling with the structure in which we will need the computers to read the information. And so I can't articulate what those reasons really are, or whether JSON in particular is that structure. But it's a structure we've inherited that a lot has been invested in. And so I think before I see a lot of like knee-jerk responses, and it's maybe a cultural thing that I wanted to flag, which is, this is not just a maker culture. I think this is like 2024 culture, particularly those of us who are like, futurists or cypherpunks or technologists. We want to take advantage of all the tools and the technology. We want to be efficient. We think that there's things that are maybe beneath us or we don't need to waste our time on. We can get to the substance. But I want to offer this counterpoint, which is that there could be some value, and I think that there is value in kind of grinding through the manual parts of things. Even if we have a tool that can do things for us, that there's a cognitive benefit. There may be all kinds of reasons that it's useful for not everyone, again, but for some people and as an organization to say, we're not going to rely exclusively on these tools. We are always going to need some humans at the core who are understanding this at its most essential level, and that we should not shy away from doing that first at this early stage, and that in fact to give and offer meaningful contributions, understanding this receptacle seems to me to be really, really important for alignment, our favorite buzzword. But I want to offer this slide that emphasizes that alignment does not mean agreement. And that is definitely, a very controversial dynamic within, the community at times, where it feels like alignment and this focus on alignment can be, and I think it really could be used. We want to guard against that, be used as, well, yes, Julia, I just saw your comment exactly. Someone's got to know when the AI is hallucinating, or when we're getting garbage in, garbage out. I think there's a lot. There's probably tons of reasons that others can articulate better than I can as to why we should really have that capability in-house. And by in-house, I mean I am including AVCs, which is again a far departure from certainly what I think most of us who started with this thought we would be tackling. But as far as whether alignment means agreement, and we don't want to see alignment used as some kind of like Orwellian manipulation to really be a cloak for conformity. But I see alignment as a concept that creates what I've called a friction light ability to communicate, and preserves a generative steady state for the ecosystem. So generative, so that we don't degenerate and explode and implode and die as a project. And that there is this way that disagreements can be productively resolved. And so, I see that alignment gives us this shared language, like a glossary, defined terms, sort of like a hieroglyphics, or what's that? A Rosetta Stone. That's what that is the thing I've been trying to think of all week. Alignment is our Rosetta Stone, so that all people in their different circumstances. And Mike, I know this is a point that you've been making and you explore in your work at Abundance DAO. We have to be able to get results even when people don't have necessarily a financial incentive to do so, or their financial incentive may be against what's maybe beneficial for the whole. So I see alignment, as we talk about it in the Atlas, as a concept that will allow the whole to progress and generate and grow and prosper, whether or no matter what kinds of actual disagreements or conflicts there might be in the organization and its participants. So here's a slide that suggests, yeah, this is all very technical. And toward the end of the meeting, want to talk about a little bit about some of the specific data that's been released in the community and my experience of actually reading it. And to encourage everyone who's in this call who doesn't necessarily have a defined role or who may be watching this video later, that there is a role for you to be involved without being an expert, and that where we are right now with the Atlas, even though, yes, we are building toward these governance AI tools, I really see this as a time where just your capacity to read and reason and use logic and common sense is really the most important skill set that everyone possesses that you could bring to the table. Like, this thing just has to kind of make sense. No one's ever done anything like this before. So it's not like there's an expert out there who can come, and maybe someone can come back from the future and tell us how to build what, the vision of the end game actually is. So I feel it is this murky space where when we say we're making it up, that shouldn't be misconstrued to say that it's, like throwing darts at a wall, or it's YOLO, or it's totally uninformed. And when we get to the data output from the ecosystem about the protocol engineering and the spell process, the delegates on the call will know this, that was produced as part of the launch project. It's very clear when you read through that information. I mean, I haven't asked specifically, but some expertise went into crafting and designing, and I suspect perhaps that ecosystem actor who announced themselves and has been engaged, I mean, maybe they've been involved. I don't know. There's a lot we don't know, and I really don't want to necessarily get bogged down in getting all of the detailed answers to every single question we might have. That would be micromanaging as an AVC. And also, I think that this experiment is all about being comfortable with being uncomfortable. It's a DAO. We're not going to have things spoon-fed to us. We're not going to have all the answers. It's not like executive training course where we can just show up and someone's going to teach us everything about what everything is and everything that we need to do. And so we should take courage and say, well, we're going to have our own little corner of the world. There's information out there. We can go and get it. We can read it. And we can learn new things. And we can help each other. And so we're going to do that. We're going to try to do that. Okay, I want to pause here and go to the chat. Invite anyone to comment, come off mute. Any feedback, observations, reactions? Ikagi says alignment means go in the same direction like a car. Yep. Mike, you had the example a couple weeks ago or last quarter, a tug of war versus, an expedition. Is that it? Tug of war? Yeah, the rope game. Which would be misalignment. You're not gonna make any progress. You probably could come to a kind of like standstill, or there's going to be these like winners or losers. Somebody's going to go over the line, versus an expedition to climb Mount Everest. Mike, what did you mean when you said not exactly? Was that to Julia's comment or something else?
Not just a comment that you made before, that if you don't have the economic incentives, then you can still have alignment. And that's just from my work, it's like, it's very difficult to have that. Like, you can try to have alignment, but that's why you need to structure the incentives to make sure that they do align.
Yes, totally. And I think in something I wrote on the forum, there was some debate about applying penalties. We have this penalty system, this idea that a facilitator DAO can be financially penalized, or maybe it's even other alignment conservers who have responsibility to act can be penalized for not acting. So if you're supposed to, there's this kind of very potentially scary area where we see it now with the bounty. We see it with the bounty on our delegates, right? A financial incentive for someone to report essentially a failure. How we look at that, and how do we incorporate that in a way that that works and is not going to be destructive. So yeah, I mean, we're the Atlas, the way I understand, the way I'm reading it is, it's 100% using financial incentive. Not 100%. I mean, there, of course, not 100%. There's this whole public good purpose. There's this meta, this social layer, this cultural layer that this evolution to the end game is 100% anchored in the reality that if profit or financial gain is sort of the only reason to engage, that this doesn't work. But go ahead, Mike. Yeah.
No, I agree. It's, I think, basically from the start, from like the idea that the whole public goods kind of vision, that if it's only narrow economic interests is what brings people to the ecosystem, it's hard to align them. But if you have this kind of public goods perspective, then that just helps align everyone, and that's true. So you need both, really.
And I would say also, there's also the intellectual curiosity. I think one of the reasons that I've been so jazzed, or I was yesterday working on my slides, like, I can't wait for tomorrow's meeting. I don't know if I've ever felt that way on a Monday. But, this opportunity to learn, to be productive, to contribute to something that's new, that's cutting edge, that, yes, it being connected with something that I believe is going to be a positive for the world is absolutely important and like a threshold condition. But then there's also just nerding out, that that the love for learning, and also an opportunity to share and to give and to see other people come into the opportunity. I mean, I certainly believe that this opportunity to contribute here at Maker is pretty unique and special. So some of the joy and the motivation is also being in community and sharing that and seeing that expand and grow, all of which is sort of not like directly transactional, or doesn't translate to, okay, I'm expecting to get X amount paid for my time per se. These are sort of like these higher human motivations that I think there's some data out there that says these things do exist. We don't know if we've seen them. Can we tap into them? Well, we have seen them. I mean, this whole industry wouldn't be where it is if that wasn't, as much as we are, kind of infamously degenerate and maybe, the greedy aspects, the extraction and all the profit motives and the speculation get a lot of billing. There's definitely, obviously, much more to why the industry is where it is right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I would also add to that, just from going to the Atlas meetings, and there is this level of like intellectual, how would I say it? The actual effort is intellectually taxing. Sorry, it's not just like copying documents into a different format. You really have to understand, like going into like the meaning of every word, almost like what is this, like very almost lawyerly, but also like on a different level. It's not just like a legal document. It's also like, how do you put it together? What's the alignment aspects of it? So, I mean, it's great.
That is the perfect segue to the next slide. We are, as an AVC, following the current atlas in terms of addressing each of the scopes in order every week. We're starting our second rotation. This is, I guess, our sixth meeting. So we've covered each of the scopes once so far this quarter, and we're starting again with the governance scope. So we will try and mesh the two in our meetings. The review work that will start for us in the coming weeks on kind of very specific output from the drafters. So I know that I guess the prime delegates and whoever is selected from the assignment that was handed in today will prepare some work that will be shared with AVCs. We'll hear more about that in the coming days and weeks. But we will also, keep up with the participation schedule and rules that are actually in effect. So it's sort of these parallel existences where we're doing, aside from the bootstrapping sections, which talk very specifically about what AVCs need to be doing regarding the new Atlas work, we're still, as a refi AVC, still planning to produce the quarterly documents at the end of the quarter. So governance is the scope and focus this week, which is great because the focus of the next generation Atlas work is governance security, this critical path, this MVP toward sub-DAO launch is all about two things. Governance security, and then the budgeting process. So we haven't seen sort of all of the ways the rubber needs to meet the road here, but I thought a good use of some of our time on this call would be to go ahead and look at this data that we actually have received. So there's a post in the forum. This is the title of it: Release Announcement Comprehensive Atlas Deliverables for Launch Project and Knowledge Preservation. Until this week, I had not actually looked at what this information is. I had not opened the files. But I've actually spent many hours just reading the files. And let me tell you, it really, really, really hurt my brain. It really hurt my brain. And like, Mike, what you were just saying about this sort of like, what's happening intellectually, or the stretching in your minds trying to grapple with this. Yeah, I mean, I definitely felt that. And so I just wanted to go through a couple of slides from one of those documents. What I discovered is that this data dump, which for those who aren't familiar, was apparently, a really intensive, I'm sure it took tons of time. It took resources. I was frankly really amazed. We don't always get tons of communication about what the workforce is doing. And, they're so busy doing. And we're so glad for that, I think we can really sort of miss our radar what is occurring, like how much is being built, how much is being done, how productive the workforce actually is, because they just don't have the capacity to both do the work and then constantly communicate about it. So, here was this post on the forum. I don't know, was it December, October? And I'm just speaking for myself. I was like, whoa, when I opened this, I realized each of the files here are structured in, I think it's JSON, or it's definitely kind of machine sort of formatting of some kind. It's not exactly comfortable or familiar, but what's incredible is it's it's just English. Like, it's sentences that describe an enormous amount about the protocol and this executive spell process, and it's an area that I have felt for my entire time being involved in Maker that that's not my expertise. I'm not a coder. I don't know the first thing about spells and solidity, and I'm just that's just not going to be an area where I can contribute. Well, I'm taking on the personal challenge of I'm going to do my best as my time allows to learn as absolutely much as I can about governance, security, and spell crafting. I don't expect that that's ever going to be a requirement for AVC members necessarily. I hope we can recruit maker holders or participants in MakerDAOs with some of the actual background in these things to perform in this governance level. I think it's tough. A lot of times, people who really, really understand this, they're doing the building. They don't want to sit in a governance call and just talk about it. So in the meantime, we will do our best. I think it's a responsibility of the aligned voter committees. If these organizations are going to set the policy, are going to be the kind of, have this role in governance in the end game, I'm becoming convinced that it's just not possible to really be an excellent steward in that role and be effective in that role if at the AVC level there is not expertise in the core of what this is, which is a protocol. And so I am encouraging anyone who's up for it, even if it's not your background, to just start chipping away by literally reading these documents. And it's actually a terrific education. That it's absolutely a guide that is more legible than I expected to find. This particular one, for example, you can see that the structure is saying we're going to talk. Let me actually go back. Right. Okay. So specifically, this deliverable goes into the non-technical principles and procedures used by the former protocol engineering core unit. And again, just to reiterate, this is a kind of data dump that's on the forum. We've been pointed to, it's been mentioned, it's been referenced that something that AVCs can be doing in the meantime to move the ball forward before we receive any specific assignments is, talk about understanding the atlas in the meetings and begin to deal with the data. It's like, Bona Publica, this is it's the forum post that's I don't know if somebody can drop it in the chat. The forum post from Ecosystem that's titled Release Announcement Comprehensive Atlas Deliverables. Right? Within that forum post, they have a whole list of files. Is there someone who can find that and put it in the chat? And these are like, notes. Ikagi, thank you. Right, okay. So if you go into that post, I think what I've copied here is there's like Atlas 0, Atlas 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe there's 12 or so. I've copied a few sections from Atlas 2. Just to illustrate the discussion, not going to really present the information here on this call, but I thought as a visual aid for people to see what the information looks like, to just begin to talk a little bit about what's there, and just share one person's thought process around how to get our arms around what does it mean? Like, hey, go ye forth and build this atlas. Like, okay, what is that? No training, no guidance, just throw you into the deep end of the pool. Here's some JSON, here's some action tenants, here's some scenarios, like 1, 2, 3, just like get it done. It's like, oh my gosh, that is so absolutely crazy. So here's just sharing with you all a little bit of my random walk into what does it look like. It's a DAO. Anyone, all of us can just, take a piece and start chipping away and, use our own intellect, our own logic, our own curiosity to try and digest what we see in front of us and find an edge. It's like maybe rock climbing. Maybe it's like rock climbing. I've never rock climbed. Has anyone here rock climbed? But it's kind of like you're just hanging. This is, I think, a great analogy. You're just like hanging on this mountain face. You're like, okay, how do I get to the top of this mountain? And you just try to find a little area. You like look with your eyes, you feel with your hands, your feet. You're like, oh, okay, there's a little like protrusion where I think I could rest my foot and like go a little bit higher. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, that's sort of like how I'm feeling right now, which is exciting. But that, all of which is to hopefully encourage everyone who is part of this to feel comfortable just flinging yourself at whatever, going to the different meetings, downloading the copious data that gets posted on a forum, and you just start by just literally reading it. And so this is what I have started to do. And we've had a new Q&A that started last week. It's going to be every 2 weeks with DWiz and is it Jetstream, who are having chats about the spell process. It's sort of a wonderful opening up, connecting of community to be able to dialogue, ask questions. So these documents that are in that post are an unbelievably incredible resource and comprehensive descriptions of all of the knowledge from the beginning of Maker about protocol issues. Now, we know how absolutely important this is. I mean, Solana, I'm just not going to say anything more. But governance security, it just strikes me that AVCs and AVC members, we must grapple with like firsthand knowledge of this. And I'm speaking to myself, that it's not enough to sort of have, oh, delegates, can you guys check it and can you tell us what's going on, or have some advisor come in and say, oh yeah, this is fine, you should do XYZ, and that we have no one in our membership that knows the Maker protocol, understands how it works. And I would even say, no TLDRs, no ELI5s allowed. No, I'm just kidding. But it's also occurred to me, the other thing I do with my day is like legal work and regulatory analysis and strategy around DeFi. And, we're still in this period of policy formation, particularly, around the world, United States, very important. And, I feel as an attorney that taking this initiative on my part to understand something that's very intimidating and foreign to me is going to be very, very helpful in the arguments and the analysis of what rules should apply from a regulatory perspective, when we can, really, the way to interpret existing laws, broker-dealer laws, who's responsible, who owns this, who owns that. I mean, we're going to come down to the facts of how the systems are actually permissioned. right? What the protocol actually is. It's got to be a very, very, very important part of being able to make the arguments or build and design to navigate, all of these external dynamics as well. So finally, I also found that the machine format, and again, this is like very new, diving in, the way things have to be written and structured and explained when they are in the JSON, whatever that logic is, versus my natural logic as the cognitive brain that I have now, being, 175-year-old attorney. The way I think about organizing information in a relationship, which maybe is very, say 2D. This is where the hologram, I'll go right back to the beginning of the very first sort of slide, the hologram, and, this, which isn't great because it's two-dimensional, but, this idea that now what the end game state is like 11 dimensions or something like this. And that the structure of the JSON, the way things are explained, and again, you can go to that post and you can download this text. I believe it, and I'm hoping it's helping to carve my way of thinking and understanding relationships in a way that develops my capability to understand the end game and to then give helpful leadership in the community, helpful fellowship. Yeah, and it's an exciting challenge, and definitely very, very challenging. But let me see. That's all that I had for my slides, and I will pause here. We've got 8 minutes. I don't need a lot of time to go over the last thing. So that was it. That was my slides. That's my attempt. That's how I digested the last 2 weeks, where I think we can try and go to infinity and beyond. How'd I do? Did that make any sense? Okay, cool. Alrighty. So the last thing, very briefly, you all or whoever's interested can find my words on the forum. I want to be very, very clear. I want to give a disclosure and a disclaimer about MakerDAOs and Acre tokens, because there are tokens. These tokens have no value. I know we've got a lot of conversation in the ecosystem, in the community, about sub-DAO tokens and airdrops and all of this, and I want to be really, really clear and let everyone know that the tokens that have been created and that are shared and held by MakerDAO's members are exclusively mementos, symbols of belonging. That there is not any venture capital, and never has been any venture capital financing the startup costs for MakerDAOs. There was no kind of ICO from the beginning. There has never been an attempt to list them, or there's no plans. God, Valen. There's no plan. No, I'm not. No, this is not BS. I'm telling you all the absolute truth, and it is 100% important that I get this out there, that it's on the record, it's been said, it's known. But there is going to be a lot of speculation. happening around us that we're a part of, and I don't want that to be. I don't want any of that, any of that energy around this AVC when it comes to being an MakerDAO's member. The community started, at the end of 2021 with this really crazy idea that could we really bootstrap and grassroots this community of regenerative finance enthusiasts? Can we use a token, a social token, for exclusively that purpose of coordination, of belonging? And there has never been really any particular like white paper around what the token is. It's all very kind of experimental. So I want to be 100% clear about that. There's no monetary value. So, those MakerDAO's members who have participated in Refi AVC and received additional acres, it's for fun, and it's, it's just for fun. And we want to see if, and there's been writings about this, particularly, in the sort of our season 1, we talked more about this. What would it look like if the token can fulfill all these other roles other than kind of the financial speculation, and can prove itself to be useful in aligning people? And so that is the acre token. So if you see anything about an acre token or acre holders or what have you, that being a part of what we do here at this AVC, just be very, very clear that these assets they are ERC20. They do not trade. They are not listed. They have a value of 0. And that nothing that I am saying is any kind of solicitation, is not an inducement to any kind of speculation, financial or otherwise. I'm giving obviously no legal advice or investment advice. And everyone knows that this industry is absolutely the most risky thing you could be involved in like every sense of the word. And so I want to, remind everyone on this call and everyone who's watching this video that every person's situation is very different, that being involved in crypto exposes you to different kinds of risks, whatever your involvement. We know about the rugs, the bugs. There's a whole kind of forest, jungle of regulatory and legal and other risks. So, it's for every person to assess their own situation, their own involvement, what jurisdiction they're in, what does it mean to participate in governance, what are the risks that face Maker as a whatever it is, and each of its participants in their individual roles. So I wanted to really spend some time mentioning those points, not something, we talk about very often. But as I'm interested in being more public facing about what we're doing here, and I think we all would look forward to more dynamism and contributions and energy and perspectives into this work in governance. And those of us here are excited to see how a tokenized community could be a useful primitive for that. It's really, really important that I'm also very, very clear that, you do so at your own risk. Nobody's promising any outcomes here. So that's it. I just had to be Debbie Downer on all of that for the record. But other than that, to the moon. To the moon. Any final comments verbally in the chat? Okay. Great. Well, I look forward to reading the submissions from and hearing LB's, response and our other meetings. And I'm looking forward to doing some more brain damage on the JSON, who's with me. And yeah, just seeing how we can evolve these AVC meetings to being a community-led effort. And I look forward to handing the reins over to such a group that wants to get down and dirty with all this stuff for the Atlas. Thank you all for your time. Good to see you. Some of the SoFi folks here. We'll talk soon. I'll see you in the forum. Bye.